evening from Los Angeles, California. I'm Dr. Ryan Alva. There are some new developments in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. We have learned that Justice Department's attempt to hold the disgraced former president and his office in contempt for actions in the wake of the FBI surge in August has failed. A federal judge, Judge Howell, refused to hold Trump's office in contempt for not fully complying with the subpoenas to return all the classified documents. Prosecutors really wanted the judge to take essentially drastic actions against the disgraced Trump and his team to hold them in contempt for not fully complying with that subpoena for the classified document. Because DOJ still isn't confident that Trump and his team have turned over all the documents. Earlier this year, Trump's office signed an affidavit attesting that they had in fact returned everything, which turned out to be incorrect. As you all know, just a few days ago, a team hired by the disgraced former president's attorneys did find at least 2 additional documents, classified documents, in a storage room in West Palm Beach, Florida. So the question is, why did judge not hold them in contempt for not fully complying with the DOJ's request and lawful subpoena? Did Judge Howell do the right thing by refusing to hold anybody in contempt, or did she do the disgraced former president's bidding? As I was researching the topic for this video, I came across an interview that Brian Tyler Cohen did with Glen Kirschner, the host of the podcast Justice Matters. That, I think, is the best explanation of why Judge Howell's decision to not hold Trump and his team in contempt was the right and appropriate decision. But before I show you a part of that clip, I want to encourage you to subscribe to their YouTube channels and follow them both. I'll leave a link to their channels as well as a link to the full interview in the description below. Thanks for watching.
So, I think it's easier if we use a more commonplace example of a theft of property because, a president stealing classified documents and national defense information is kind of not the everyday occurrence that is easy to understand. So here's what I want to do. Rather than talk about stolen documents, let's talk about a bank robbery because we can all envision a bank robbery, right? The robber coming out with big cartoon bags of stolen money, taking them to his house and concealing them. The law makes no distinction, Brian, between kinds of stolen property. So whether it's money or documents or a TV or a car, the law treats it all the same, and criminal investigations usually follow a normal course and pattern. This one didn't, and that's why DOJ finds itself in this investigative quagmire. Let's go back to our bank robbery. Let's assume somebody robs a bank, takes some of the money home, hides some of it, maybe spreads some of it out in a garage and in a storage facility, maybe spends some of it. What does law enforcement do? They investigate. If they get enough evidence to apply for a search warrant to try to recover the stolen money, they get a search warrant, they conduct a search of the robber's property, and they collect up all of the stolen money as best they can. But let's assume they didn't find it all. What do? Well, they arrest the perpetrator, they arrest the bank robber, they don't leave him out and about, and then they continue to investigate. How? Well, first of all, when they arrest a bank robber, they Mirandize him, read him his Miranda rights, and if he waives and agrees to be interviewed, they say, hey, bud, where did you hide the rest of the money? They also conduct an investigation of eyewitnesses and the bank robber's friends and families and criminal associates to try to figure out where the rest of the money is. And then what we in law enforcement do is we get supplemental arrest warrants. That's how an investigation is conducted. Now, let's shift. You know what they don't do, Brian, before I go to the president? What they don't do is give the bank robber a grand jury subpoena. Say, Mr. Bank Robber, would you mind returning all the money you stole? Just bring it to the grand jury pursuant to this subpoena. Oh, and if you don't, we're going to ask a judge to appoint a records custodian over the money you stole. And if you won't do that, we're going to ask the judge to hold you in contempt for not appointing a records custodian over the money you stole. Now, can you see how none of that makes investigative sense? Let's shift over to Donald Trump. Instead of doing what they should have done, they being DOJ, and instead of doing what DOJ would have done if it was you or me stealing classified documents or anybody other than Donald Trump, they would have gotten that search warrant, searched Trump's property and recovered all of the classified documents they could find, arrest the perpetrator, Donald Trump, and then continue the investigation to see if they could get more search warrants and recover more of the documents. They didn't do that. Why? Because they treated Donald Trump differently than every other person who might steal classified documents. They put him a little above the law. And that is why they find themselves in this mess. So what happened after they issued the subpoena? Donald Trump disobeyed the subpoena, committing the crime of obstruction of justice, for which Donald Trump has not been locked up or indicted or held accountable. And they continue to struggle with this sort of completely unconventional investigative path. DOJ has kind of dug themselves into a hole. So what do? They run into Judge Beryl Howell's chambers. And as I say, this is a sealed matter because Chief Judge Beryl Howell in Federal District Court in D.C. has supervisory authority over the grand jury. So they went to Judge Howell and they said, Judge Howell, Trump and company are not complying with this subpoena. They're not giving us over all the documents. So what we're asking you to do, Judge, is force them to appoint a records custodian. And if they don't do it and they don't certify again, they've already certified it once and it turned out to be a lie. If they don't certify again that they've turned everything over, we want you to hold them in contempt. This doesn't make any investigative sense, Brian, because Judge Howell is not going to say, oh, okay, let me force them to name a records custodian who will then say, I have control over all of the documents Donald Trump stole. These are not business records. This is evidence of crime. And so Chief Judge Howell quite appropriately said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to force them to name a records custodian over the stuff Donald Trump stole that he continues to unlawfully conceal. That's not the way it works. But this is where DOJ finds itself. So when people hear the reporting that, oh my goodness, Judge Howell refused to hold them in contempt, refused to do what DOJ wants Judge Howell to do, it's because she doesn't really have the authority to do it. And unlike Judge Cannon, Judge Howell cares about the law and about the procedure, and she's doing it right. So, this is where we are. It's not easy to understand. It's not intuitive, but I think Judge Howell made the right decision.
To support my work, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Also, please don't forget to hit the bell icon so you wouldn't miss any of my new videos. Thanks for watching.